Welcome. So we're up here for the second panel today, and I am excited to be here with such a great group of doctors and industry to kind of talk us through presbyopia and myopia. And at a 30,000 foot glance, we'd look at presbyopia and myopia and say they aren't necessarily should be together necessarily on a panel. But I think that we should look at it a little closer and realize that both of these things are things that are continuing to have a growing number of patients and a larger effect on our patients that is daily, both physiologically as well as mentally affecting our patients. Presbyopia has about 2.1 billion people with near vision loss in global, with 120 million of those in the United States. And it's decreasing the quality of life in patients as that near vision decreases. I think it's also a good statistic to think about that 10% of patients who are presbyopic said that they would actually trade 5% of their life to get rid of it. Myopia, same thing. We're talking about both of these as affecting the vision and being a larger problem. Approximately 49.5% of it is estimated from the myopia trend paper that in 2050, 49.5% of people will have myopia greater than a half a diopter, and that being 199 million in 2050. So that's a significant and growing problem. So that's kind of why we're up here and where they really kind of fall in together. And what we're going to do is I'm going to actually start by having my panel introduce themselves. I myself am Cecilia Ketting. I am an optometrist practicing out of Denver, Colorado. And I'm going to pass it to April and we'll just go on down.
April Jasper, West Palm Beach, Florida, in a general practice, meaning I see patients of all ages, and we have all kinds of fun doing that.
Well, thank you, first of all, OIS, to inviting me again for this panel. I'm Rajiv Garg. I'm currently the global head for myopia management strategy at Cooper Vision. Been in the eye care for a long time. Before myopia category, I was on the ophthalmology side for 10 years with J&J and Bausch & Lomb, head of marketing. So it's interesting. I've seen both myopia and presbyopia side. I've seen both from the optometry and ophthalmology side. So it's going to be exciting panel.
Yeah. And I am Brianna Rue. I practice in Fort Lauderdale in a private practice there. I'm also the co-founder of Dr. Contact Lens. So living this other side of the industry as well, selling to optometrists, which is also interesting. And I have two babies that are 6 years old and 15 months old. So coming from two myopic parents is where I'm really seeing this category change and excited to bring this to my practice and eventually my family members.
Great. Well, good afternoon. My name is Chris Roden. I'm in a group private practice in Southeast Louisiana. And similar to April, we provide primary care, secondary care, and even some tertiary care through our 3-location practice with my colleagues.
Wonderful. Thank you. Again, like I said, I'm humbled to be with this panel here. So we're going to start going through a couple questions. And first, let's talk about why is addressing childhood myopia and presbyopia important?
Well, I can kick that one off. There are many of my colleagues in the room here who could certainly be sitting up here in my place as a quote-unquote expert when it comes to presbyopia and myopia. But I know the answer to this question, and doggone it, is because I'm a myope and I'm a presbyope now. So that's why it's important and why everybody should be investing in it. So if you can fall into one of those categories, let me hear an amen if you're a myope or if you're a presbyope at this point, right? Because, it's inevitable, at least right now. Maybe one day there'll be something that is different, but it is inevitable. As Cecilia mentioned, the numbers are staggering. It is eerily similar, the trends between presbyopia and myopia as far as the numbers. I think it was in 2020, some of those numbers that you were quoting, Cecilia, where more than 1 in every 4 people breathing on the face of planet Earth was a presbyope in 2020. That number has clearly grown. It's getting closer to 30% now. So that's well over 2 billion presbyopes worldwide, 124 million roughly in 2020. That number's probably well over 125 million now. So if we talk about just a small percentage of those patients even, there's a huge opportunity in market share for industry as far as innovation and bringing new products to capture some of that unmet need that's out there. And for us as practitioners, clearly, we're talking about something that's been been dealt with since the first humans got in their 40s, right? With presbyopia specifically. And so it's something that we've made some strides with. There's more opportunity out there for us to do an even better job in meeting our patients' needs. And so obviously when we talk about loss of vision, we talk about impact on quality of life and lifestyle, just tremendous opportunity.
Yeah,
from a presbyopia standpoint.
Well, turning 28 for the 12th time, one of these better start working. So with the myopia side, I'll share a quick little story. So when I was actually on my way to the hospital with my second child, my parents were in town for my baby shower. And Friday at 4 o'clock, my mom called me and she said, I have this floater and some flashes of light. And I was like, of course you do, on Friday at 4 o'clock while I'm going to have a baby. So this does affect us. So not only did my mom get a new grandbaby, but now I get to hear about this grandbaby floater all the time. So this is something that affects all of us on a daily basis. And parents are coming in, they're worried, so that the US is very far behind the rest of the world. It is imperative that these treatments get out into the hands of our colleagues, because 70% of the patients that we see on a daily basis are myopic, with the majority of those also becoming presbyopic. So merging these two together is really an advancement in how we can practice. So one thing that's exciting in the doom and gloom surrounding optometry and our colleagues, which we're up against all the time, that we get to make 60 to 70% of our income from what we prescribe, it's important that we start charging for our services that we provide to our patients as that becomes more commoditized. So I am a huge advocate that there's a huge opportunity here for the brightness of myopia and presbyopia, for us to practice the way that we were taught and also charge for it. So with these coming out, we're going to enable our clinics to thrive, and optometry has so much to gain from this. So we're in a very good spot, both financially and to benefit our patients.
And kind of piggybacking off that, because you're talking about benefits to us as optometrists, but what about where are the significant opportunities and where do we see an area for growth in either presbyopia, myopia within the industry and giving us those tools to be able to take care of our patients?
Yeah, I think, if I may add, I think the opportunity in the space of myopia and presbyopia is just huge. And I think all the innovations we heard, so in the numbers we heard, this incredible number of hundreds of millions of patients, and everyone will be getting presbyopic for that. And I am one of myopia and presbyopia person as well. But I say the opportunity is from everyone is now. I think, if you look at it, thanks to companies like Cooper Vision, there is FDA approved products, other companies, there's multiple products out there that can help solve it from there. But the penetration of whether you talk about myopia or presbyopia, it's very low, single digit from that perspective. So I think that opportunity taking those products is now for manufacturers, for the ECP, for their practices. The awareness of patient is very, very low. So helping drive that awareness of the patient from that perspective is just a huge opportunity to make the financial benefit there. There is also opportunity, I think, in terms of treating everyone. Right now, I think we take at waiting for treating, let them progress in myopia. I think there is opportunity to let's treat everyone from that perspective, not just treat high myopes from that piece. So I see just tremendous opportunity in this space now.
I think the other opportunity that I see when I look at what happens in my practice is that I need better direction from all of you that are coming up with these products as to which patients at what stage in the disease need which products. I think if we're all honest in hearing what happened just today, there's a lot of products coming, which makes us all very happy, but also very confused. If we let us, if we go that far, and I'm just that person that's going to put it out there. I think that if I'm a little confused, then there's a lot of people that are a little confused, and that's why you don't see a lot of people prescribing. And part of it is that they don't understand which patient and when to start with a certain product. But the other part of it is as well that they don't want to be wrong. So it's funny how when you try something as a doctor, when you prescribe something, it's not the product that gets the bad name when it doesn't work, it's me. And so that's why doctors need to know when is it the right product at the right time. And maybe there's 4 products that would fit that category. That's great. But tell me more about it. And then help me to better educate my patients so that I'm not the one. Because in the world of myopia, we've had some products for a long time. Some of you are sitting there going, what in the world is the problem? We've had this for 10, 20 years. So the problem with that has been that doctors are becoming better educated, but the patients still don't hear anything in the news. They don't hear anything in social media. They don't hear anything out there. So I'm spending a whole lot of energy and time trying to make them believe me and not think that I'm just selling them something. So I think when I look at opportunity, I look at it a little different. You've got great products, but let's all be honest, we need a lot of help in understanding what to use, when to use it, how to use it. So help me with algorithms, help me with marketing, and then let's get the message out there the way the doctors want to hear it, because not many doctors, unfortunately, came here today. We've got to get more of them here today, but we also have to reach them where they are in other places.
If I may add to that, April, I think, having lived on both sides, and I think there are a lot of MDs who are doing really well in the premium IOL practice. They've kind of cracked that code, and there are a lot of, optometrists who are doing really well on like how to build this myopia category from that perspective. And I see that, it's a huge barrier. I mean, ECPs, they don't have time, they don't have chair time. Their practice doesn't know how to ask for money, what product to prescribe, how to change the flow. And I see the opportunities, the innovation coming in that business model as well. Yep. Is how do we actually help the practice manage this from every aspect to it? There are companies who's doing it. I would also encourage those facing similar problems, reach out to the companies like Cooper Vision or others, and they're very happy to help you set this practice management up as well. But that's a really big opportunity.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's definitely a hurdle in our practice success, right? We want success in the exam room with our patients. We want success in industry when you're there. And so it goes back to what Paul showed earlier, and the fact that, our patients are expecting me to be the curator of information and the curator of suggestions and recommendations for them that work in the exam room. Because you're exactly right, April. We get blamed if something doesn't work or if it's too expensive, as if we're supposed to know what every copay is for every drug that we prescribe or what every candidate should be ideally. And so to the extent that you could help educate us, I think that would certainly help overcome hurdles, and it would certainly shallow that trough of disillusionment, and it would make the curve a lot steeper getting out of it so that success is something that can be achieved.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's interesting is now we have not done a good job. If you look in parts of Asia, they're able to go in and screen all of these kids in under an hour, like an entire school, and show who's myopic. Pediatricians are not doing a good job on referring things. And then Cooper Vision, instead of picking Michelle Geller, you should have picked Freddie Prinze Jr. because that's who you're really going after, is that demographic of mom. So maybe some marketing tips.
We'll take that. We'll take that feedback.
No, but I mean, all of it, you're absolutely right. I mean, we have to have the tools to be able to implement these in our office, and we need the easy button. Now, those of us who are up here, probably not the target audience, because we are going to be the ones who are going to be a little bit more aggressive as trying to figure these things out on our own and be willing to take that leap and maybe be a little bit wrong or have a patient blame us for something not working. But for the large majority, I think that's why there was very little information and marketing and help revolving around the first iteration of a presbyopia medication that I think is getting better, and we're having more conversations about it, and people are getting to feel comfortable. But getting ready for the next people to come to market or the next product to come to market, even talking about multifocal IOLs or premium IOLs, we still need all of that as far as optometrists and ophthalmologists, all of us, eye care physicians. Right. It's not just one or the other. And I think the other thing that I want to make sure that I mention is also just the education and realization, not just to the obviously to the patients, right? Direct to consumer, direct to the patient, saying, hey, look, these are problems. You should probably be talking to your doctor about the myopia, the presbyopia. These are things. But also, hey, look, I haven't really seen that many patients in the last 15 years under the age of 18. So myopia, they asked me to do a myopia panel. Guess what I had to go learn about? Yeah, right. So I'm like, oh, wow, this really is a huge problem. And I hate to say that as somebody who's up here as a KOL and I talk all the time, but it is the reality. I sat there and I'm like, well, I don't see it, so I don't think about it. We got to change that. We really got to change that. And as we're kind of coming along here, just any more thoughts from any one of you about we talked a little bit about co-management or just kind of bringing in and bridging the gap with OD, MD, and working together as far as collaboration.
Go ahead.
Well, I would just say in general, clearly we talk about multifocal IOLs, for instance, and whether that's trifocals, extended depth of focus, we've seen those designs bleed over into contact lenses. And so for instance, for our cataract surgeons that we work with, we've got one who loves the light adjustable lens with a modified monovision for a multifocal effect for patients. I've got two other surgeons who prefer some combination of a trifocal with an extended depth of focus IOL. And so understanding what they're seeing clinically in the operating room and helping us to identify on the front end who's the best candidate for what. Again, like we were talking about earlier, when it comes to presbyopia control or presbyopia management, myopia control, those things help because certainly if I can set the table for my surgeon with a discussion of a multifocal IOL, realistic expectations and identifying the proper candidate up front is just a much smoother transition from pre-op to post-op to the aftercare thereon. So I would imagine that could even be extended beyond just IOLs into presbyopia management with pharmaceuticals, or whether that's other non-traditional forms of presbyopia and myopia management, especially in multidisciplinary practice where perhaps the ophthalmologist would send patients to the optometrist in their practice or to someone in their referring network to help manage these conditions that perhaps they're not going to have the time or the inclination to do because they're tied up with all of the cataract surgeries and everything else that we know are coming. So I think it does create another opportunity for some synergy between the two professions.
Yeah, if I would add, and it's pretty exciting to see the ophthalmology profession and society is starting to take active interest in myopia control. American Academy of Ophthalmology formed a task force, with their mandate of teaching all their members on reducing the progression of myopia. Their advocacy to Congress led into CDC getting into action. And for me, it's also interesting to see now that profession also starting to embrace optical intervention, not just pharmaceutical. So I think you guys may have seen that just last week, World Society of Pediatric Ophthalmology just released their updated guidance for managing myopia, embracing all the evidence-based, optical interventions for myopia spectacles, soft contact lenses, ortho-K, in addition to atropine as the solutions that work. So I think, it's very exciting to see that. It's a huge opportunity, I think, Chris, as you said, for collaboration for those. If you are not practicing, co-manage, refer to those, your network of ODs who are managing it. But it's really an opportunity for both professions to come together.
No, I agree. And I think that, again, the more synergistic we can be, the better we are for our patients, regardless what we're talking about. Well, in the last 6 minutes-ish that we have here, what we're going to do is I want to hear from you guys looking to the future. What are you excited about in regards to new and emerging treatments that are coming to the space for presbyopia or myopia? Who wants to start?
For me, I'm excited about anything you bring to me that's new that I can bring to my patient that's going to create value for me and better outcomes for them. So I just want you to keep being creative. I want you to keep coming up with new solutions. There's not one thing that's good for every patient. And I love Dr. Maria Liu has a life cycle of myopia management slide that she shares, and I'll have it in my presentation in a couple of days. And what I love about that is it helps us to see that there's going to be a different option at a different age even. So if I'm a different refractive error and I'm a different age, I might want one product over another. So I think that to continue to look at us and our practices, knowing that we take care of patients of all ages. So now when that myope comes in, that's 15 and is a -5, what am I going to do different for that patient than I am for the -1 who's 5? And if there is nothing different, that's fine too. But I think the new technology coming out, the only barrier for me, and again, for I think most doctors out there, is understanding what to use when, like we said already, but also the fact that we need the information as fast as we can get it. So keep getting us the information as fast as you can.
I think what excites me that's coming is obviously more and more of us are getting on board as more things are getting FDA approved. So a lot of times now that we have the MiSight was the first approval, and now we have J&J with an Ortho-K that's approved, and soon to have atropine, and then glasses coming too, and then wearable devices that we just saw presented today. All of that encompassing that together. And if you look to the future, what I'm looking for is it's the generation when I'm 65 and this 6-year-old kid that I diagnosed today as a -1, I'm not going to be the doctor in 30 or 40 years taking care of that patient. It's going to be the generation behind me, and we get to shift what they're going to be talking about, whether it's myopic maculopathy or a retinal detachment. We get to change that conversation for generations to come. And that's, I think, what's really exciting with the myopia and why more of us need to treat it and treat it sooner. And it's not just throwing a drop on them like many of our ophthalmological colleagues are doing. Optometry gets to own this together, but I'm getting referrals from LASIK surgeons now, cataract surgeons, because these are the parents going in that are -6s, -7s that can't have this procedure done, and they don't want that for their kids. So we get to be the ones to lead that conversation, but it's bridging the gap between pediatricians, ophthalmologists, school trainings or school screenings to really combine this, because it really is an epidemic and we can change that progression. So
I would certainly agree. I think as April put so far, there's not a one-size-fits-all approach, and there's room within the space with those numbers for lots of different options that we can customize from patient to patient. And some of our colleagues are hesitant to get into pharmaceutical control of presbyopia because of a negative impact they may think it has on their optical sales or whatever the case may be. And yet it's very rare that we see that it is a one-size-fits-all. It's often additive, and so it's not just one thing, it's multiple things. And so getting over that hurdle, I think, is important. And some of the things I'm really looking forward to would be some of the extended release drug delivery technologies, perhaps making their way into presbyopia management, into myopia management. I don't have any knowledge of anything going on currently, but perhaps a drug-eluting contact lens, right, that's got peripheral defocus that corrects that patient's myopia where they are now, and yet has atropine in it that sits there and elutes over time to help control the myopia. Or perhaps a presbyopia treating contact lens that's a monofocal distance contact lens that's got a parasympathomimetic or some other lens softening agent in it that over time addresses their presbyopia, allowing them to not drop out of contact lenses in the 40s like we see with so many patients, and yet still meeting those needs. Seeing Jay and Maureen Knights there at University of Washington and what they've discovered in their gene therapy research, and finding the gene that seems to be defective in syndromic high myopia, and possibly being the result of high contrast signaling occurring in the retinal bipolar cells. And is there some really early upstream intervention that could occur outside of even what we're talking about now that may really be a game changer for patients in the future? So keep innovating, keep pushing it forward, keep educating us. I couldn't agree more.
And can I add one last thing? I think the other thing too is if you look across the country as how OCT was adapted, right? In 2008, 2009, nobody had one. Look at something as simple as an A scan or even a topography. We have to make those barriers to entry easier. All of our spaces are used, every single footprint in our clinics is taken up by something. So when there's a new piece of equipment, there's so much value that comes along with that we can't invest in. So there's some things that need to be combined here, but we have to make it affordable for these to get out into these clinics. So that's, I think, another interesting area that needs to also come along. And you need to go patent some stuff that you just said and be up here next year.
Yeah, if I were to add like in the last 30 seconds we have, so I think the panelists have very well covered all the products, and those modalities will continue to innovate. If I look even further out in the future, I see we all living in the chat GPT world, am I right? In terms of like the AI being used to predict the future of who will get the disease. There is innovation happening on the diagnostic sides to help monitor and track and the disease better. And I think to your point, April, I think business model innovation to help actually the adoption barriers to be lowered from that perspective and grow that. But again, I come back to it's like, the opportunities, that all future is very exciting, but even more exciting is today. My simple message is like, go start now, start early, start now, and don't wait. There are solutions there right now.
Great. No, and the nice thing is, before we got up here, we got to hear from a bunch of companies about some amazing things that are in the pipeline. So we know we've got lots of things coming up. I want to say thank you to this panel for giving us a great discussion, very enlightening and very informative. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you.